You can now subscribe and get 20% off every single time you get that rich, tasty, CBD-infused Strava Craft coffee sent straight to your doors. If you haven't tried Strava Craft coffee, it's worth a try because the CBD infusion in there can help you with a lot, whether it's aches and pains, headaches, IBS. There's so many different things that CBD can bring you benefits for. So check out Strava Craft coffee. You'll never have to think about getting that CBD. It'll just be right there in your morning brew. And when you subscribe, you can choose to get it sent to your door every 2, 3, 4, 6, or 8 weeks, which is pretty cool. You'll never have to worry about running out of coffee. It'll just come straight to your door. So if you guys want to try it before subscribing, you can use the code DNVR20 at checkout to save 20% off, or get that subscription set up and save 20% every single time.
Number one for the one and only DNVR. 2 goes out to Zach, Mace, RK, and the bar. 3 for Mr. B in that old trophy case. Number 4 we're still waiting for. Well, bring on the chase. Out on the field, a mile high, Broncos win is our desire. Couple with a breakfast crew and a friend bleed orange and blue till the bitter end. Come and join us at the DNVR. We are DNVR.
Welcome in to the DNVR Broncos podcast presented by MSU Denver Online. MSU Denver is the Colorado institution providing rigorous and affordable programs taught by professors who bring the real world into the classroom. So check them out, msudenver.edu/online. MSU Denver students work twice as many hours as students attending any other Colorado institution, meaning you can get your degree while continuing to live your life and continuing to earn a living and hopefully get a degree that helps you earn an even better living. So check them out, msudenver.edu/online.
My boys, what's shaking? How's everyone doing? Guys, today it really feels like the off season.
Oh, why is that?
It just really feels like we're in the heart of the off season. Not much going on.
Yeah, but if this were a normal year, we'd be getting ready to go to the combine.
Yep.
So we really would be we'd be at a peak off season week right now if we weren't in the COVID environment. We'd be probably have our reservation for St. Elmo's at 9:00 one night. We'd be getting ready to do shows. Zach and RK be trying to get me to watch The Bachelor. I'd be falling asleep on the sofa again. You know, it's just it is off season, but I'm thinking a little bit about what we're missing out on this year. There's a little bit of melancholy not going to Indianapolis. It's thrown my rhythm off.
Yeah, that is such a bummer. That's the last work trip I think I took. And it feels like forever ago, not just a year. That feels like it was 10 years ago when we were, the three of us having drinks out there, talking to coaches, all that good stuff.
In tight quarters with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
yeah.
Actually, this weekend we were going through some videos on my phone, and my daughter wanted to rewatch the video, Zach, of you eating the St. Elmo shrimp cocktail with the very incredibly spicy sinus-clearing sauce.
Man, that stuff is so good.
Oh, wow. Yeah, now I'm feeling kind of bummed.
But sorry to be a downer, but
Bum Talk Monday in a different way.
But it's cool. I mean, it's one of the things that makes covering the NFL fun is being at the combine, and it's really kind of the closest thing we get to kind of an NFL convention, as it were, and then just going around and bumping into coaches and scouts and GMs just around the town, and everyone kind of lets their hair down a little bit, and it's sad to not have that this year.
I keep my hair up even in Indy, but I know what you mean, Mace.
Well, you're a hair up kind of guy. All right, well, maybe to cheer me up, we can revisit a little bit of Friday's show, which turned out to be a blast. Thanks to everyone who watched then, and we'll hope to watch again this week, as we'll have another episode of Three Ring Circus on Friday. Which reminds me to tell you, if you're watching on Periscope or even on Facebook, we highly recommend you make the conversion over to YouTube. It's just a much better stream quality and all that. And while you're there, you can hit us with a like. You can set up alerts. You can subscribe to our channel. We appreciate all that stuff. But YouTube, much better streaming product than all this other stuff that you're getting it. So anyways, let's circle back to Friday's show, because James Palmer, via our very strategically created game, gave us a lot of information about the Denver Broncos. And one of the things that he mentioned that has kind of been a narrative that's been floating around a little bit is this idea that the Broncos are very interested in the top tier of quarterbacks, which really could be as shallow as Deshaun Watson and as deep as Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, and I guess you can include Russell Wilson, although that seems like it was like a one-day story because, everyone was bored. But
we need it. It's the off season.
I know.
Baby.
Someone needs to demand a trade today so we can have something to talk about. But the reason why I wanted to talk about that is because I personally get, of course you're interested in those guys. And then James follows it up by saying anything after that, the Broncos are very lukewarm on. And I think this is the right place for the Broncos to be. Now, while there are some names out there that would intrigue you, and I think we even talked about Jameis Winston that day, I think that for the Broncos, the best situation is either one of those top guys or giving Drew Lock another chance. What do you guys think?
I agree. And my question that comes to that is, where are the drafted guys on this? Are they kind of in the hedge category where the Broncos are lukewarm on and should be lukewarm on and not go anything crazy on that? Or are they in the top echelon where they're going to go crazy for, like they're going crazy for Deshaun Watson? Are they going to treat the drafted guys that way? Because that's, I think, where this becomes interesting, is the drafted guys in this conversation.
Yeah, if they're not all in on somebody in the draft, if they don't have a conviction about one of those quarterbacks, they shouldn't pick them. Because one of the things that's gotten the Broncos in trouble is, they've gone in some directions that weren't a conviction. They did, if they really wanted Paxton Lynch, they made that trade up to 26, but they wouldn't have sat there and waited for him to fall that long. Of course, he proved to be a bust. They sat and waited for Drew Lock. They didn't take it. They didn't move into the first round to take him and get that fifth-year option. They waited until the second round. So I would say if it's a quarterback that they are just willing to wait on, then it's not at number 9, wait on him to fall. Then that's not necessarily somebody that you want to go all in on and put in that first category. They're in that second category. And then frankly, the second category is clear starter, but not necessarily an upgrade on Drew Lock. And that's where I think James was right on. I think that's why they weren't really in on Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz, based on last year, wouldn't have been an upgrade on Drew Lock. I don't think they're in on giving Sam Darnold the Jets a heck of a lot for Sam Darnold either. Same reason, not a significant upgrade, which then leads you to the hedge competition likely backup category, which is where I think the Broncos will be if they don't come out of this Deshaun Watson lottery with a winning ticket.
By the way, I saw a stat today that was a rating. It was the rating of quarterbacks in the draft after they move on from their first read. And of the top 5 quarterbacks, Mac Jones was last in that category.
No, boo.
When you've got great receivers who are able to work their way open with their routes, how often do you have to move past your first read?
Very rarely, which might create bad habits. Anyways, sorry that I had to get that in there.
No.
I think that if the Broncos are interested in any quarterbacks in the draft, they're doing one hell of a great job of keeping that quiet. Because if you're just reading the tea leaves, you would come to the conclusion that the Broncos have no interest in the draft quarterbacks. And at least that's the way I'm seeing it. So, again, to me, they're in they're in a kind of a decent position here where they don't have to be desperate at the quarterback position. Now, I think if Deshaun Watson actually becomes available, which is this weird little cat and mouse game that the Texans are playing with everyone right now, then I think you act desperately to get him. But other than that, the position of not having to be desperate, not feeling like you need to trade up in the draft to get a quarterback, not feeling like you have to overpay someone in free agency to fill that hole is kind of a nice place to be at. Conversely, you have like the New England Patriots, who I saw a report today said they've called on every single quarterback that has any sort of trade, rumor around them. They're scrambling right now. I mean, they're too deep in the draft to guarantee themselves one of those top guys. They don't have anyone on the roster that they're interested in, and there's they don't love any of the free agents, so they're in a terrible position comparatively to where the Broncos are, where the Broncos still have this intriguing young guy who, if your quote unquote worst case scenario is hoping that Drew Lock improves in his second year in the offense for the first time in his career and the first time in a long time, it's really not that bad of a place to be.
Well, and also it's George Payton taking the 6-year plan to heart and saying, I'm going to make some tweaks, but not go crazy. I don't have to sell the farm to win this year. It's maybe something Vic Fangio doesn't want, but George Payton's the guy in charge right now. And what I don't want George Payton to do is freak out at the last minute when free agency comes around and sign one of these hedge guys to a Teddy Bridgewater-like deal. And remember, Teddy Bridgewater wasn't an incredibly successful quarterback and a hot free agent. And what did he get? 3 years, $60 million? That's what I don't want the Broncos to do, to get locked up past this year on a hedge quarterback. If they want to go out and sign a quarterback, Jameis Winston, 1 year, $15 million. I mean, give someone a ton of money. That's fine with me to get a top hedge guy in, but I don't want a hedge quarterback to be locked in further than this year because, guys, if it doesn't work this year with Drew and the hedge comes in and is just that, he's a hedge, well, then you want to go get your guy next year in the draft or in free agency, and it's just that much more difficult to do that when you're paying a quarterback for 2 more years at $20 million or so, and that market will be there for quarterbacks. We just saw Matthew Stafford go for 2 firsts.
What if that
hedge is Teddy Bridgewater, though? And if you trade for him, you are inheriting only the salary on the contract. You're not inheriting the prorated portion of the bonus. So basically, you'd get that guy for about $12.9 million this year, and then no guarantees, no anything in 2022. You could cut him scot-free. He would be a 1-year guy. What would you think of that?
Yeah, fine. I mean, that's certainly not sexy at all. Teddy Bridgewater is the ultimate hedge where he can have good games. And we saw that. I think he had a couple of first halves last year where he had a perfect passer rating. He did that multiple times last year, which is crazy. But Teddy Bridgewater's a guy that's going to go, 8 interceptions over a year, 15 touchdowns. And it's just not sexy. He's the ultimate hedge.
So my question is this. If Teddy Bridgewater were in a quarterback competition with Drew Lock, who wins? Straight up, no biases.
With this coaching staff, it's Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, I think so too. I think there's some Pat Shurmur familiarity with him, and also while George Payton is on the 6-year plan, Vic Fangio and his staff are on the 1-year plan. It's all about what gives them the best shot right now, and not waiting on the development of a guy.
And that's exactly my point. Is I actually don't. This sounds silly on the surface, but just hear me out. I don't want a hedge who's a little bit better than Drew Lock and a lot a bit older than Drew Lock, because that guy, coaches want to win football games, as they should. And so I agree with you guys that in a fair competition, which I think it would be, Teddy Bridgewater ends up winning the competition. But what did you accomplish by potentially going 8-8 or 9-7 with Teddy Bridgewater? Nothing at all. And so for me, it's you want Drew Lock. You want to take your chances with Drew Lock. That's why I like this position you're in, because rolling the dice on Drew Lock isn't a bad situation. But look at what the Panthers are doing. They're, they're already trying to upgrade from Teddy Bridgewater, who they paid a hell of a lot of money last year. That he's perfectly in a category that can't get you where you want to be as a franchise. So while he might give you the best chance to win any given Sunday over Drew Lock right now, he doesn't help you accomplish anything. You either want to find out Drew Lock takes a big step forward and now he's above Teddy Bridgewater and all these other guys, Carson Wentz, maybe even Matthew Stafford at, the way he is right now. Or you want to go the other way and start all over. Having a Teddy Bridgewater come in and win 9 games for you only makes the fans, happy on a Sunday to Sunday basis. It doesn't really help you move your franchise forward.
Okay, I get what you're saying, but here's a little more on that, though. First of all, it's not like Bridgewater's that old. He's 28. He's actually exactly 4 years older than Drew Lock. They were both born on November 10th of their respective years. So we're not talking about the guy who is just the bridge to get you to the next person potentially if he ends up being successful. The second thing, last year, basically his first full season as a starter since he had that injury. And of course, that injury is something that George Paton saw firsthand when he was working with the Vikings. He also saw that the only full season Teddy Bridgewater had as the starter with the Vikings, they went 11-5, won a division title, would have beaten Seattle in the playoffs with a game-winning drive, if not for a badly missed field goal attempt there in the chill over at University of Minnesota Stadium. And then Pat Shurmur didn't coach Bridgewater for any of the starts that he had, but did see him in his rehab and could probably have some projection on what he could be. I think it's kind of trying to put myself in the shoes of Peyton and Pat Shurmur, and Peyton in particular, and what Peyton saw from Bridgewater might incline him to take to roll the dice. And he's a lower mistake guy over the long haul than Drew Lock has proven to be, and that's something that may attract Vic fans. Look, I agree. I'm lukewarm on the guys in between myself, but I think this is something that could be a real possibility if Carolina says we have to trade him right now.
Oh, and I totally understand why George Paton or Pat Shurmur or Vic Fangio like the idea of Teddy Bridgewater. Yeah. I just personally don't think it helps you in the long haul. Now, you could maybe make the case that, hey, if Teddy Bridgewater gets the Broncos back to a winning team, it was the step, it was the
John Fox,
right, or the Tim Tebow step, where I've always believed that Peyton Manning looked at the Broncos and said, if that guy can get them to the playoffs, I can get them to the Super Bowl. And maybe that's you can't go from step C to step A. You got to hit step B in between. And you can make that case. It's just we use that word sexy. It's not sexy. I'm with you, Mace, that he's not old, but you don't think he's still a developing quarterback. At least I personally don't think he's still a developing quarterback. Whereas Drew Lock, you're like, okay, well, he still has a chance to become something that we haven't seen yet. I think we know what Teddy Bridgewater is for the most part. Now, can he improve on what he did last year? I think so. But he's not, in my opinion, a franchise quarterback.
Guys, if the Broncos are going to go out and get a hedge and you're going to pay a decent amount of money to get this hedge, he's actually going to compete. Don't you want a guy that could potentially lift you from being the 4th best quarterback in the AFC to at least the 3rd best quarterback? And I don't think that Teddy Bridgewater does that. I don't think Marcus Mariota does that. Heck, he's a backup for the 3rd best quarterback in the division right now, potentially 2nd, depending on where you think Justin Herbert is. And so Jameis Winston, he's a guy that could potentially have a higher ceiling and raise you from the 4th to the 3rd or something like that. And then I think after Jameis, because I think you guys like Jameis's upside as well, and he could still be on the development track, but then how many other hedge guys are there that are kind of in the Jameis Winston category? I mean, is Gardner Minshew in that category?
I don't know.
I could see Minshew getting to 3rd best. Because I could see him continuing to develop, being a pretty accurate quarterback and a low mistake quarterback, especially for a young guy. That's huge. And I could see him being the 3rd best. I don't, based on what I expect from Herbert and what Mahomes is and will be, I don't think he threatens the top 2. And that's where, to circle back to the draft for a moment, if you're George Paton and you're on the 6-year plan, are you thinking about Trey Lance?
I would be. I just don't think they are. I just don't think they are. I actually think Winston has top 2 in the division potential. Because I'm not quite ready to crown Justin Herbert, although he looks like, he's very, very much on his way to being the second best quarterback in the division for a while. I'm not quite there yet to say like Jameis Winston wouldn't be able to get him. With Minshew, I mean, it
doesn't really feel like it,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. It's a tight, it's a kind of a narrow window where Derek Carr regresses a little bit, he progresses a little bit, and you're okay. Now you have the third, like, hooray,
Right.
it's a kind of a tough place to be. So I probably wouldn't put him in there, and I'd love to hear George Paton's philosophy on this. Like, do you have to look around the division and say, how do we get to second best? Because getting to first, well, it sounds, fine and good. It's just probably not realistic. But you really should be saying, how do we get to second? And once we get to second, if we can do a better job building the rest of our football team than the Chiefs have, then we can win and compete with them. Or maybe it's just not the way he looks at it at all, and he just says, I need to look at my team and figure out what the best thing is for my team. And, obviously by proxy, you're now trying to get the second best quarterback in the division, or you should be. But I'm just curious if they look at it that way, because going back to, Zach, the last Senior Bowl that we went to, that's when Drew was there, but that's when Kyler Murray, it was his draft class. And I was just saying, like, you have to get crazy and try to figure out a way that you can have a quarterback that can compete with Patrick Mahomes. If that means rolling the dice on, little Kyler Murray. Now, this was long before he was considered to be the consensus #1 pick in the draft.
It was.
And, he was still, people thought he was still going to play baseball back then. I was saying, like, I don't care. You got to figure out something to compete with Patrick Mahomes. And it hasn't felt like the Broncos were approaching their situation in that way ever since then. So, I would love to know George Paton's strategy on this, and is he looking at Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes and saying, okay, we have to get our Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, or is he just saying I need to improve the quarterback position for our football team?
He says, I need my Gardner Minshew. And Ryan, it's a great point. And so here's what George has to decide. Does he want to take another year with Drew, see if he can develop, even if the chances aren't likely that Drew's going to develop? It kind of gives George Paton a full year to start evaluating next year's quarterback draft class. And if the Broncos take off with Drew, great. He doesn't have to worry about quarterback anymore. If the Broncos don't take off with Drew, then they can trade back this year, have the ammunition to move up next year and get their guy. Or does he say, look, I can use a first-round pick this year to get a quarterback. If that guy doesn't work out, I can go back in year 3 as general manager and grab another quarterback and try it one more time. I can have 2 shots at a first-round quarterback, whereas if he waits till next year to do it, his window is a little bit smaller because there's a chance that he's not seeing year 4 or 5 of his contract. So that would kind of be a reason why George selfishly would say, yeah, sure, I'm going to take a shot and swing for a quarterback in the first round this year because I'm pretty much guaranteed to have another shot to do this if it doesn't work.
Well, if George Paton is who we think he is, and I believe this to be the case, they've started doing their homework on next year's quarterbacks already. Because a good way to view it, Zach, if you're looking at this year and next year, is who's the quarterback that you like best for next year? For me, it's Sam Howell. So I would evaluate these quarterbacks on the Sam Howell scale, and I'd say, other than Trevor Lawrence, still likely to go #1. Do I like any of these quarterbacks now better than I like Sam Howell next year? And if the answer is yes, then you try to find a way to get him.
Yeah.
If not, then you stand pat. You maybe trade back, accumulate some capital for next year, and you ride with Drew Lock in a hedge, and you see where it goes this year.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by Trey Lance, and I think he has all of the ingredients. And it doesn't always work this way, but when you look at the quarterbacks who have succeeded, as young players in the NFL over the last 5 or so years, a lot of them have the similar ingredients to Trey Lance, which is high-level athleticism, big-time arm. That's Josh Allen. That's Patrick Mahomes.
That's Paxton Lynch.
No. But, he does have the ingredients. That's exciting to me. But I'm still in the boat that the Broncos just aren't necessarily that interested in drafting a quarterback this year. One thing
also on Lance real quick, it's not just the physical attributes. He's extremely intelligent. I mean, we know he's got book smarts. The guy literally had Ivy League offers on his doorstep to go play football. He chose North Dakota State in part because of the, Carson Wentz, Josh Allen came from out of there, although Craig Bowl had moved on. But that coaching philosophy had netted Allen, Wentz, even Easton Stick getting an NFL shot. That's why he went there. But it's important to note on Trey Lance that it's not just the physical attributes and the on-field stuff we're talking about. He's also got it upstairs, and apparently he's a whiz at the whiteboard, which is going to make some impressions as well.
I was going to say, and he doesn't seem like a Ryan Fitzpatrick where he's just super smart and it kind of translates to the football field. This is a guy who makes great decisions on the football field. The only year he played a full season, 0 interceptions, 28 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Guys, with Trey Lance, you can make an argument that he's the second best quarterback in this draft and should be the second overall pick. And I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of see that him creep up. But then, you also have people saying North Dakota State. I don't want to take that risk. And that's where he falls down to the 5th best quarterback on some people's boards is that. But guys, you take all of these individual things that you just said, how is he not the second best quarterback? And so that's where he's the most interesting quarterback prospect in this draft.
By the way,
year. That's why he's not the second best quarterback. 1 year starter.
Right.
That is the primary reason.
By the way, I don't agree with it at all. But each year over the last 3 or 4 years, I've always called one quarterback who I said, at some point, this guy's going to get buzz as QB1. And I said it about Zach Wilson. And I said, it's not going to be right, but at some point, someone's going to say he should be considered. Well, it happened.
Yeah.
I think, actually, I'm going to call it twice now in this draft class. I don't know if it's going to be QB1, but I think that Trey Lance will definitely get QB2 buzz at some point between now and when they select in April. Especially, are they going to get an opportunity to get him on the board and do that sort of stuff without the combine?
You could do it virtually.
Yeah,
you can. I mean, you just say, okay, we're going to do this Zoom, and you be at a whiteboard in Fargo or wherever you're working out, and then just make sure you kind of pull the camera back or pull the computer back, and so they can see what you're doing up there. So, I mean, there are ways around it, even with things as they are today, to get that kind of information that you'd need if you really, really want to figure it out, if you want to put the effort in.
That's what it's going to be, is there's going to be some report. Like after meeting with one team, so they were blown away by Trey Lance. They have him as the number 2 quarterback on their board, something like that.
And really quick, speaking of reports about the number 2 quarterback and the number 2 pick, Ian Rappaport tweeted this morning that the Jets are planning to complete their evaluations of top quarterbacks in the draft before making any decisions on Sam Darnold. So that just means that they're trying to keep all their options open, and probably they're trying to drive up the price of Sam Darnold.
Yep, absolutely. Did you see, speaking of Sam Darnold and the Jets, Mike Kliss was ranking the Broncos' current quarterbacks on who is most likely to be here next season. And it was not Drew Lock who was ranked number 1 on the list. It was notable Jets beater Brett Rippon and he didn't even, get cute with it. He just straight up said Lock could be gone to Houston in a trade for Deshaun Watson. What I said it last week, I'll say it again. What once was a pipe dream now is just like part of the everyday conversation is Deshaun to Denver. Like that, that there was a while where we were the only ones talking about that very often. Now it's in every Broncos conversation, no matter where you listen.
Yeah, I'm always going to remember before we did our first talking of podcast of Deshaun Watson, Ryan said, we might as well do it now because it's probably going to be gone soon. and I totally agreed with you, Ryan. And thankfully, we were wrong because you're absolutely right. This isn't just us talking about it anymore. It's all of Denver and all of the nation, including, all of the sports books, including DraftKings Sportsbook, which has them. What is the third favorite?
Yeah. Now they have DraftKings as of this morning has the Panthers at plus 200, the Texans at plus 200, and the Broncos at plus 400.
How about that?
Although what was interesting, Peter King, when he was kind of tossing out some things on Drew Lock, he didn't give the Broncos a formal trade proposal like he did for 5 other teams, but he did suggest trading for Watson, trading Lock, and trading Garrett Bowles, which actually I thought the Texans, what would they do with Bowles? Because they already have Laramie Tunsil, but that was kind of intriguing.
Yeah. I noticed that as well, and I was thinking maybe we have that conversation, but maybe for another time. It was interesting how little he went through like 5 teams, I think, building a whole proposal, and then he just threw the Broncos into a category called the others, which kind of sucks. But anyways, one last thing here. Oh, and I also wanted to mention, someone in the comments mentioned that there was a PFF mock where they said Watson was traded to Denver and Houston selects Trey Lance with the Broncos' 9th overall pick. So again,
that'd make a lot of sense for Houston. If they realize that Deshaun's not going to play from them, I think that would be a great trade because they would also get some other first-round picks and other assets too.
And you have Drew Lock as potentially a guy who can hit or be a bridge as you prepare with Trey Lance. Last thing here, people are chomping at the bit to know who won the Pop-Tart draft.
People aren't chomping it. We don't need
Everyone wants to know. 688 votes were cast, and by 1%, I took the victory over Mace. Zach was way in our rearview mirror.
Guys, the first 11 votes I was winning, and I'm not sure I received another vote after that.
It was your girlfriend, your mom, your dad, your brother.
Tried to create some early momentum, and it didn't work. But interesting, how split people were on the fruit flavors.
Yeah, that's what I always thought. I always thought there's 2 kinds of people in the world. There's the fruit flavor Pop-Tart lovers and the other ones. And then there's Zach.
The ice cream Pop-Tart flavor lovers. I think that the conclusion we get to the poll is that there are 2 potentially right choices, and then there's Zach's choices that are wrong.
Yeah.
I like how simple Mace's board is.
It is. It's very simple. This is a 2-party system, but Zach got on the ballot anyway.
Representing that Green Party.
All right. That's, I think, going to wrap it up for us on the live side of things. So we're going to move on to the podcast side of things. Listen to us anywhere you download podcasts. Of course, if you tuned in on YouTube, hit us with a like, hit us with a subscribe, and you can even sign up for alerts anytime we go live or drop a new video. But for now, that wraps up the live side. Thanks to everyone for tuning in.